Welcome everybody. Another tough subject to talk about, my father's battle with cancer. I think this will resonate with people who have had suffering in their families and how that affects the family and how it affects their relationships with each other and their relationship with Jesus. So my father had cancer. Big one. I was probably late teens, studying, and my mother was a stay-at-home housewife. My father was only 55. He was very young, very energetic. He had a very busy job. He worked in a hotel. He was a waiter, and he gave silver service to people, so he was, quite a skilled gentleman at that activity, and he loved his job. And this was absolutely devastating for him. So my mother discovered he had a small spot on his neck, and it started growing, and it grew uncontrollably. Really, really bad. It became black. It started to bleed. It was, quite unsightly. So he went to the doctors. This is back quite a few years. This is when cancer treatment was very hit and miss, shall we say. So the doctor said immediately, we've got to get you to the hospital right away and get that cut out. So he went to the hospital. My mother went to see the doctor separately to find out what was happening. And literally she said when she came out of the doctor's surgery that your father's going to die. He literally only has, maybe a year to live. He has a lymphoma in his lymphatic system and he is going to die. So she was devastated. She was just absolutely, completely devastated. But she had this situation of wanting to hide it from my father. But myself being a teenager, older teenager, took the responsibility of trying to support my mother in this. And I'm sure that this happens in many families. So anyway, my father went into hospital. He had a very serious operation on his neck. He had dreadful things which they did at that time, weird skin grafting. So he had a piece of skin taken from his leg and then put onto his neck. He had difficulty in moving this arm. There was no radiotherapy at that time. It was just pure surgery. So he recovered and then went back to work. And we thought possibly that was going to be it, but of course no. He got a secondary cancer on his arm, and it was like a huge, great boulder growing on his bone of his arm, like a big stone. It was just like enormous, and it kept growing. And anyway, so he had to go in again. The doctor said that this is a secondary cancer. So this is the first manifestation of the secondary cancer. Possibly it's going to be in the rest of his body. So we'll just see how it goes. And my mother again was devastated. She was completely, crying all the time. My father had gone back to work. He was more concerned about how my mother was getting on rather than how he was facing his imminent death. But anyway, so he had to go in for this second operation. Again, that was serious. He had a part of his bone taken away from his arm that was cut away. And that was, quite gruesome and nasty and very long-term sort of like healing, really. So he couldn't go to work for quite a while after that operation. So in the meantime, what happened was I knew about healing. I knew about Jesus. I knew that Jesus did miracles. And it was very strange, but I hadn't prayed to start off with, but now that I think we'd given up on modern medicine, I started to pray. I remember very very vividly one night spent in prayer in my bedroom on my knees, praying to Jesus for a miracle to heal my father. Just weeping and repenting of all the mess up that I made in, I continually messed my life up. But, my father seemed to be a rock. He was strong in a faith that believed in God and believed in the world and believed in an afterlife. He didn't go to church, but he did have a faith. And he was obviously a second war. He went through the Second World War. He saw people die around him. Death was not something that he was unfamiliar with. So anyway, then something really interesting happened after that prayer. My father was in contact with quite a few people at work, and one of his guests, or the people who he served, suggested that he went to see a Christian faith healer. And my mother at that time just thought, what's this? What, someone after your money? Her views were always very much sort of like on the negative side. And anyway, with a little bit of coaching from his friends, Dad said, let's go and see this guy. So I didn't go. This was my mother and father went to see this guy. He lived in Westbourne. I think he was a doctor, but he had also a Christian mission, which was in faith healing. So he prayed for my father. He laid hands on my father. My father went there several times during the course of his illness, and he prayed. My father started praying. My mother prayed. I continued to pray. And this guy just continued to lay hands for about a month on my father and prayed. And my father said it was a really strange effect. He sort of would lay hands on his body and it'd shake. He would feel sort of like a tingling feeling when this guy would lay hands on him, and he would pray in the love of Jesus for a miracle. And this guy, I think he did get quite a bit of money. In fact, people used to give him money, just for going to see him, towards his mission, his donations. My mother sort of said, how much should we give him this time? So, my parents were giving him some money. But anyway, through the prayer, and to take the conclusion of the story, no cancer was found in my father's body after he had the faith healing. He had no other signs of cancer, and his life began to become normal again. The doctors said that he had to go back every 5 years for checkups, but he had no more cancer in his body. So I would say that he had a miracle, because at that time the medicine was not that good. It was just surgery, and many people died. So I believe he had a miracle of Jesus, a healing from Jesus. And my father lived a long life, and he didn't die from cancer. He died from a heart attack when he was 91 years of age. So bless him. I know he's with Jesus now. So I hope this story's helped. And I hope that if anybody is touched by people having cancer in their lives, themselves having cancer, having a family member have cancer, and the difficulty that causes in the family, and wanting to put, this false face of everything's going to be all right, but inside you're just crumbling. Inside you are crumbling. And I know how to help people in that. If you want me to pray for you, if you'd like me to chat with you about your circumstances, then I'd love to help you. So please contact me. Bless you.